Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, I'm going to be revealing all of the move updates for the upcoming new season of Pokemon Go Battle League. This will be Season 25 of Pokemon Go Battle League, and there are some really big changes that we need to talk about. So, buckle up, and without further ado, let's hop into it. The first change we'll be taking a look at is a buff to Powder Snow. Powder Snow currently is 5 damage, 8 energy every 2 turns, and it's getting a damage buff from 5 to 6. This is a buff for Pokemon like Walrein, Piloswine, so they do get a little bit of extra damage, and this is going to put Powder Snow as a Shadow Claw clone. We saw a lot of moves become Shadow Claw clones last season, and now it's Powder Snow's turn. A lot of teams this previous season were weak to Ice, so this is their attempt, it looks like, at making those Ice types just a little bit more enticing to use. The next buff we'll be talking about stays with the Ice types, and that is a buff to Icicle Spear. Icicle Spear is currently 65-40, and it's going to 70-40. This means Icicle Spear is going to be an Aqua Jet clone. This buffs, well, the same Pokemon that the Powder Snow buff. It's buffing Walrein, it's buffing Piloswine. So these are two Ice types who are looking to have a dramatically increased role coming into the new season. I really like Piloswine. I do know that obviously in a Walrein environment, taking neutral from Ice might hinder Piloswine a little bit, but it does have interesting coverage that Walrein does not have. The next change we'll be taking a look at is actually a nerf. While the Dragon Breath rework was a really nice adjustment for the Open Great League, it kind of killed the Master League. Well, Spacial Rend is getting nerfed. It is getting its energy cost increased, so Palkia will still retain the Ninetale Aquatail spam, but it's going to be more expensive to get to Spacial Rend. They don't specify how expensive it's going to get. I hope it gets quite a bit more expensive because I do think that Palkia does need to be reined in quite a bit, because the current season's iteration of Master League ended up proving deeply unfun, with Mega Masters being a lot more fun, just because in the Mega Master League there was finally Pokemon that were at a similar power level to Palkia. We're going to stay with nerfs for the next change, and this is a nerf I know many people will be excited about, and that is Parabolic Charge is getting nerfed. Parabolic Charge will still have the guaranteed chance to boost up your defense, but it's going to be more expensive. That means the Dene is going to lose that 10-turn Parabolic Charge pacing. We don't know how expensive it's going to get, but at minimum, the Dene not being able to keep pace with other threats in the meta should severely reduce its presence. I imagine Belly Bolts will still stick around in the Ultra League a little bit, just due to the fact that it is incredibly bulky and will still have those guaranteed boosts, but getting them less frequently will hurt its neutral matchups. Next up, we're talking about a buff so massive that it quite literally doubles a move's damage, and that is the buff to Geomancy. Geomancy goes from 4 base damage to 8, and in my eyes is another attempt by the devs to try and make Master League a little bit more playable. They realized last season's Master League was a big swing and a miss, and with Palkia having worse pacing to Spacial Rend, and now Xerneas getting a huge buff, they're hoping that Xerneas might be able to fight back against those Palkia Zacian cores. I still have my doubts, because even though you have way more Geomancy damage, you're still a pure Fairy type going up against the Fairy Steel, so it'll definitely be better. I still don't think the matchup into Zacian is going to be super fun, but it's clearly them doing a dramatic increase in power level on Amon to try and make the Master League a little bit better, because this season's Master League was definitely not it. The next change we'll be taking a look at is a buff to a Ghost type charge move, and that is a buff to Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball is having its energy cost reduced, meaning that Shadow Ball will now be, at absolute worst, 50 energy. This means Aegislash will have a second charge attack that it can double up with, which is something that it does really like. It's also buffs to Pokemon like Drifblim and Pokemon like Glalie. This does mean that Drifblim, worst case scenario, is going to be 5 to the Shadow Ball now instead of 6-5 because it was 55 previously. So it's a pretty nice buff to Drifblim, as it will be able to get 2 same type attack bonus damage that much faster. So an interesting change as Ghost types get a little bit of love. The next buff is an absolutely massive one, not quite as big as Geomancy, but this is the buff to Vice Grip. Vice Grip is a move that's currently so bad that there's a pretty decent chance that you didn't even know it was in the game. The only way people would really know Vice Grip was in the game is if you're trying to TM a Pokemon to its proper moveset, and instead of getting the charge attack you wanted, it kept giving you Vice Grip. Well, Vice Grip is in the game. It's a normal type charge move. It currently has awful parameters, 40 damage for 40 energy, but not for long. This upcoming season, Vice Grip is going from 40 to 70, and that means this is a normal type clone of the move Aqua Jet. Now, currently, there aren't really any good Vice Grip users. The closest would be Mawile, but you may notice I have Regidrago listed on this screenshot. And that is not by accident. That is because in this new season, Regidrago is learning Vice Grip. This gives Regidrago a true bait move back. Regidrago no longer has to deal with Dragon Energy being its cheapest charge move. It gets 10-turn Vice Grip pacing. 70-40, that's going to be coverage, allowing it to hit back against Fairy-type Pokemon. Obviously, it's still going to be walled into steals, but it's going to be a lot easier to get to than something like Hyper Beam. So that's very exciting. I really liked Regidrago 2 seasons ago, and I felt like the reworks kind of made it worse. However, the devs giveth, and the devs taketh away. Because we got to stay on the topic of Regidrago and talk about the nerf to Dragon Energy. Currently, Dragon Energy is one of the most efficient charge attacks out there. 100 damage for 45 energy. And that makes Dragon Energy a clone of Frenzy Plant. Dragon Energy is going to be losing some of that stopping power in this upcoming season, as Dragon Energy goes from 100 damage to 90. So Regidrago does get its pacing back. It gets a true bait move back, which is incredible, but it goes from a Dragon-type Frenzy Plant to a Dragon-type Avalanche. Still a very strong attack, but very clearly an attempt to make sure that Regidrago isn't too overtuned. But overall, I am pretty excited about this, because I feel like Regidrago didn't really end up having a place in the meta, and I would like to see Regidrago back, because Regidrago was an extremely fun Pokemon to run. So I'll take a little bit of less damage on Dragon Energy with an ability to bait. Next up, we're going to be moving over to Dark-type Pokemon and a buff to Foul Play. Foul Play currently is 60 damage for 40 energy, and it's going to be moving to 65-40. This is going to make it a clone of the move X-Scissor, and is a buff to Pokemon like Malamar and Murkrow. I really like Malamar, so I hope that with a little bit of extra damage in neutral situations, it can help Malamar maybe return to glory, but this also buffs other dark types, which Malamar typically isn't a big fan of. So there's some give and take here, but it is a Foul Play buff. Other Pokemon that are Foul Play are like Mandibuzz, Umbreon, Pokemon like that, but these are the two that I listed because they were meta relevant the most recently. The next change we'll be taking a look at is a rework to Shadow Sneak. Shadow Sneak's having its energy cost increased, but its damage increased as well. Now, Shadow Sneak doesn't have a big distribution. Like, I think the main things are Pokemon like Sableye and Giratina, and I guess Ariados has it as coverage as well, but we don't have exact parameters on this, so it's tough to know the exact change one way or the other and whether this is a buff or a nerf. You know what is a buff, though? We have to talk about the big buff to Meteor Mash. Meteor Mash's current parameters are 100 damage for 50 energy, and its energy cost is decreasing. This is absolutely mental. This means Meteor Mash, at worst case scenario, is going to be a Steel-type Frenzy Plant clone. This is a huge buff to Metagross. This is a huge buff to Mega Metagross in the Mega Master League. It's a big buff to Clefable as well, as Clefable will now have insanely efficient Steel-type damage. As I believe with Fairy Wind, that's going to be Meteor Mash every 10 turns. So that is a pretty cool update, and hopefully that's another, at least as far as Metagross goes, that's another thing the devs are doing to try and make the Master League a little bit more playable, because last season, I've mentioned it quite a few times, I really don't think that was a good Master League meta. Okay, we have one final buff to talk about before the attack availability updates, and that is going to be the buff to Brick Break. Now, Brick Break is getting a buff to its damage. Currently, Brick Break is a truly terrible move, 40 damage for 40 energy, and it's going from 40 to 50. Now, Brick Break obviously has a guaranteed defense drop, but realistically, not a lot of things currently use Brick Break. Brick Break will have a little bit of extra damage, but it's overall still an extremely inefficient move, and I don't know if this is really going to move the needle as far as a bunch of Pokemon using it. The best Pokemon that has Brick Break is Furret, but I think it's a tall ask to ask Furret to give up either Trailblaze or Swift. So, Brick Break buff, it's on there, but I don't know how much of a difference it's going to make. The final move update we have to talk about before the attack availability updates is going to be a pretty interesting Master League one, and that is going to be a buff to Oblivion Wing on Yveltal. Oblivion Wing is going to have a guaranteed chance to buff defense. On paper, this looks incredible. Yveltal already has great stats, and it's the same stats as Xerneas, and it'll be able to buff up its defense. However, I am a little bit worried because even if you're buffing up your defense with Oblivion Wing, Yveltal still absolutely hates Crown Form Zacian. there's not really anything it can do in that matchup. So while this should, in a vacuum, make Yveltal a lot stronger, the fact that it doesn't have much counterplay into Zacian does worry me a little bit. So I really like Yveltal. I'm cautiously optimistic, but I don't have super high hopes for it returning to become a meta terror, just because Zacian and Zamazenta do exist, and those are still, even with being able to buff up your defense, extremely bad matchups. Now that we have covered all of the move updates, we got to talk about the attack availability updates. I haven't made individual slides for these. This is just a graphic from Galax, and we're going to be talking through them one by one. The first update we'll be talking about is Weather Ball being given out to a few more Pokemon. Weather Ball Water is being given to Ludicolo. This is amazing. Ludicolo has wanted a cheap charge attack for forever. However, Ludicolo still doesn't have a good fast move until you notice that Ludicolo is also getting Astonish. This is a really nice double update for Ludicolo. Ludicolo only had bad fast moves and it didn't really have a cheap move, and this solves two of those problems. Grass plus Water is a really interesting typing, and I would love to see if Ludicolo could actually find an anti-meta role as a Pokemon that's very strong into Slap and also offers a Bullet Punch resistance against something like a Shadow Scizor. We have Weather Ball Water being given to Bronzong. I really don't think this is going to move the needle much. Weather Ball Fire being given to Solrock, and Weather Ball Rock being given to Lunatone. So Solrock is going to be Psywave, Weather Ball Fire, and I believe it's Solar Beam that it has. So a pretty interesting moveset. Again, I think it's probably more anti-meta to Spice, if anything. Ursaluna finally gets a fast move, but not the fast move we were expecting. Ursaluna, people have been asking for Shadow Claw for forever. It gets Smackdown. Honestly, Smackdown, I don't really see this moving the needle too much. Ursaluna would really want to have a very quick energy-generating fast move, and that's not what Smackdown does. Smackdown is all about the fast move pressure, but a non-same type attack bonus Smackdown in a league as bulky as the Master League, I don't think is particularly interesting. Next up, we're talking about Blaziken, which is getting Aura Sphere, which we already know from this season is 80-40, and Ember. This means that Blaziken, it's sacrificing all of its fast move pressure, but it's going to be an absolute speed demon, spamming out Aura Spheres, spamming out Blast Burns. This looks to be a very glassy option, but an incredibly fun option. Next up, oh my goodness, Lucario is getting Meteor Mash. This pretty much solves the debate as to what moveset Lucario will run. Because Lucario, as far as its charge moves, should just be running Aura Sphere Meteor Mash. Lucario is going to have incredibly efficient charge attacks, and it can run Bullet Punch or Force Palm depending on the coverage that you want. That's a really cool change, because Flash Cannon was just too expensive. But my goodness, Lucario is looking really fun. Next up, we have a bunch of Pokemon getting Sacred Sword. We have Doublade, I believe it's pronounced. I'll have to look that up. Getting Sacred Sword and Shadow Claw. So for Doublade, Doublade has pretty okay stats. Its stats are in the 1800s. And it's going to be Shadow Claw, Sacred Sword, and then Gyro Ball. So a very interesting moveset. Doublade, a Pokemon to watch for in the new season. Hisuian Samurott. Hisuian Samurott is now going to be Fury Cutter, Icy Wind, and Sacred Sword. That's an incredibly cool moveset. Oh my goodness. Kartana's getting Sacred Sword as well. So Kartana, and I was looking through this, and Kartana also gets Fury Cutter. So Kartana gets Fury Cutter and Sacred Sword to go with Leaf Blade. Those move changes in this particular Sacred Sword group all help. They are really nice updates. Hydreigon gets Fly. So Hydreigon will get a very efficient flying type charge attack to potentially threaten big damage onto any potential fighters. So maybe it could run like Brutal Swing Fly. Currently it probably just runs Brutal Swing Dragon Pulse, so it's probably more situational side grade material than anything. The Dunsparce gets Dragon Tail. On paper, this doesn't look like much. The Dunsparce also gets Body Slam, but they recently announced, much like they had the Championship Series Cup meta for the Latin American International Championships, they're going to have one for the European International Championships in February. And that meta is very dragon heavy. So having something like the Dunsparce having Dragon Tail for super effective damage, the Dunsparce is looking to be extremely strong. Up next, Gogoat finally gets reunited with its coverage move. Gogoat had Rock Slide taken away pre-release, and it gets Rock Slide back. This is pretty cool. Gogoats can be able to spam out Rock Slide very quickly. And obviously Rock Slide did get a buff last season, so Rock Slide is not nearly as bad as it once was, and should offer Gogoat some pretty legit coverage. Next up, we have Satitan getting Icicle Spear and Superpower. We already talked about Vice Grip Regidrago, but Satitan currently... Let me look up what Satitan was running. So Satitan currently was running Avalanche, Body Slam, Heavy Slam. So this gives Titan a lot more of a legit moveset, as Titan obviously already has Powder Snow, which is getting buffed, so Titan is basically getting triple buffed in this season. It gets steel coverage, it gets the newly buffed Icicle Spear, so everything's looking up for Titan. We already talked about Astonished Ludicolo, we already talked about Fury Cutter on Kartana. Next up, we have Brutal Swing Dhelmise. So Dhelmise already has Astonish, Metal Sound, Shadow Claw as fast moves, and for charge moves, it is Power Whip, Wrap, Shadow Ball, and Heavy Slam. So this gives Dhelmise its cheapest charge move by far. This is something that Dhelmise needed. Now, it's still a Dhelmise. It's very attack weighted, and it's a Grass Ghost, so as for Dhelmise's viability, I'm not super hype, but it is a thing that it needed to help round out its moveset. Up next, oh my goodness, we have Dragon Breath, Aerodactyl, and Tyranitar. This is going to make Tyranitar have 9-turn pacing, Dragon Breath to Brutal Swing. I don't think it's going to do much for Aerodactyl, but man, T-Tar having 9-turn pacing, I still don't love the viability of T-Tar in a Master League meta that's dominated by Zacian, but in something like a Halloween Cup, for example, Dragon Breath, it's going to be able to spam out these moves incredibly quickly. Kyogre is getting a coverage move into Dragons. It's getting Avalanche. Currently, Kyogre would have to farm all the way up to a Blizzard if it wanted to hit for super effective damage, and Blizzard just kind of ends up being game-ending. If a Blizzard is shielded, it's too much energy lost, and if a Blizzard lands, it kind of just wins the game. But with Avalanche, Kyogre would have a cheaper way to get super effective coverage into Dragon. So I do think that is a cool update. Next up, we have Water Gun on Suicune. This is probably for Dynamax raids. I don't believe this has any PvP viability. Fire Fang on Dachshund. I don't think this does anything for Dachshund, really. But you know what is going to matter? Payback on Tentacruel. Tentacruel has always run like Acid Scald, and then people sometimes run Blizzard, sometimes run Sludge Wave. There's a variety of different second charge moves. I think this will kind of settle it, and Tentacruel will just run Payback. This is going to give Tentacruel the ability to hit super effectively into Ghosts, which is something it's wanted for a very long time. I think this is a strict buff to Tentacruel, and this is a really nice update. We already talked about Titan on Icicle Spear. Look at Gourgeist, though. Gourgeist gets Incinerate. This is a really cool update, as Gourgeist currently is Hex, Seed Bomb, Shadow Ball. Now, Shadow Ball is obviously getting cheaper, so Shadow Ball is going to be at 50 most likely, and Incinerate is 20. This means 3-2, 3-2 pacing to Shadow Ball, and being able to spam out Seed Bombs very, very quickly. So Gourgeist, I think, definitely could be a riser, as it's a grass type that absolutely obliterates Shadow Scizor. Powder Snow on Glalie. Glalie getting a lot of love in this update, as Glalie obviously likes the Shadow Ball getting cheaper, and Glalie will now have the option of running Powder Snow, as its current ice options were Ice Shard and Frost Breath, although it typically preferred Rollout. We did talk about Ember on Blaziken, Body Slam on Dunsparce. Ooh, Ursaluna gets Play Rough, so Ursaluna does get another charge move. If you've ever tried to TM at Ursaluna, you'll know it has a massive learn set, and that learn set is only getting bigger, and Houndstone gets Play Rough as well. And then we have Milotic. Milotic is getting access to Aqua Tail. This is really nice because Milotic's charge attacks were just simply too expensive. Even Surf. Surf getting more expensive did really hurt Milotic, so getting Aqua Tail is really nice. And Lumineon is getting Aqua Tail. Lumineon has other issues. It has incredible bulk. Like, I believe it's like a 2,000 stat product Mon, but its current moveset is pretty bad. It's like Water Gun or Waterfall, and then your choice of Water Pulse, Silver Wind, and Blizzard. So this definitely helps Lumineon quite a bit. I don't think it moves the needle towards viability a whole lot, but it's a pretty cool update. Okay, we did it. We have made it to the end of all the updates. It's a pretty big update. Now, this is purely just information about the move updates. This doesn't cover cups or anything like that, but I wanted to get this information out as soon as possible so we can take a look at things to build for the new season. But man, I am actively looking through my Gourgeist as I record this outro to see what Gourgeist do I have. Looks like I have a few Gourgeists saved. Man, I really should have caught more of the Gourgeist during the Halloween event. That is what I am learning. Is I definitely should have caught more of those. All right, that should do it. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoy watching content like this, please do leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Let me know down in the comments, what updates are you excited for in this upcoming season? And an extra special thank you as always to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is sincerely appreciated. Thank you guys so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.